Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Banished Big Brother. I'm Zach Varnell and I'm here with Elizabeth Melton as always.
Hello, everyone.
And we are going to get straight into the stories, which this week is mostly about people destroying flock cameras. I have just seen that all over the place. Here's an article you sent me. Rio Ranchero police arrest man accused of destroying license plate cameras. Have another one from WUSA 9. People are vandalizing surveillance cameras in Virginia amid privacy concerns. Another one, more flock cameras cut down in Houston amid privacy concerns. I assume that, oh yeah, it's Houston, Texas, not Houston, Georgia. I had to assume there. Another one looks like it's in Texas. Residents, well, this one they asked them to cancel the contract. I'm getting ahead of myself on that one, but a lot of people just taking it into their own hands and getting fed up and going and cutting them down this week. Have you been seeing that too?
I have been seeing that and actually saw where an Air Force veteran, not a veteran, I think he was actually in the Air Force, um, cut a bunch of them down. I think he cut 13 of them down and he's still in the military. So this is someone who obviously feels very passionate about it. But the one that you just showed about the fellow in Arizona, that one was particularly interesting because he cut them down and stuck American flags in the pole behind him. And when he got pulled over and they found all of these flags, well, he had one of the flags like in the back of his truck waving as he was going down the road. So he wasn't really trying to hide too hard. And they saw these flags in his truck. It was pretty obvious that it was him. And he didn't bother to deny it. And so they went to his house and tried to find the equipment. And he basically is like, no, I just threw it in a ditch somewhere. But yeah, in both of these cases, these are two people who cut these down, and they are not at all ashamed and not at all concerned about the fact that they got caught. They feel so strongly about it.
Yeah. So what changed over the last, like, seemingly just the last month, really? And especially over the last year, because I remember, when we kind of started Banished Big Brother and we started this podcast, we were talking about this to people and they didn't know what a flock camera was. Some of them didn't care. Um, I feel like when this first kind of kicked off, one of the most effective things was just showing people what a flock camera looked like. And then that kind of
Right.
opened your eyes and you started seeing them everywhere. And you were like, oh, what is going on? Where are, I didn't notice these last week. And now I'm encircled by them. But it seems like we're well beyond that now to people are pissed off and some of them are doing stuff about it. So like, is this just a
Yeah.
natural progression or did something really ramp up recently? I don't know.
I am not sure what brought it all on, but it is definitely there's something in the air. And yeah, it's very great to see this much enthusiasm for getting rid of them. And there are still people out there. You have to have those discussions in the comments of social media posts and so forth. People who think that they're great. But I have noticed that whenever these people pipe up and say, "Well, I think that they're wonderful," and the standard responses of, "Well, if you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to worry about, no expectation of privacy in public," and those typical arguments that people use, it's like people are just jumping on them and just roasting them in the comments. But it's I haven't seen anything like it before.
Yeah. Look at the flag there. It has vertical
Yeah.
stripes. It's a weird flag.
That is, yeah, that's interesting.
I wonder if that means something or it's just he got a, funky batch of flags. I can't tell if this one, yeah, this one's vertical stripes too. And then where the blue field would be, it's white, it looks like.
I don't know. That's strange.
Yeah. So he planted a flag that resembles the U.S. flag, but so here's the Air Force guy you were talking about. So Air Force engineer accused of cutting down 13 police cameras says they're unconstitutional, and unfortunately, his last name is Sovereign, Jeffrey Sovereign. He faces 25 charges after police say he destroyed those cameras. Supporters are paying his legal bills. And I think I might have seen a story where like they're trying to throw the book at this guy. Like they're seeking
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Yeah. The fellow that planted the flag, they were saying that he is like 18 years is what saying that he could possibly get. But someone pointed out that this is a great opportunity for jury nullification
Oh
in
yeah.
action. Yeah. If there's that much anti surveillance sentiment out there.
Well, and for anyone who doesn't know, what is jury nullification?
So basically, as a jury, you are weighing the law itself. So, as a jury, if you feel that the law is unjust, then you can basically find not guilty. So, this is not something that they generally tell people when they show up for jury duty. In fact, they get really upset when people point this out.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they've held people,
they,
I think, in contempt before for pointing it out, or at least they'll dismiss you.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, if you're going to do this, which basically is voting your conscience on the jury rather than exactly what the law says to do, then,
right.
maybe don't make it known. Just privately hold that and do it.
Right, right. So basically you're evaluating the law itself and not just the person accused of breaking it.
Yeah. So here's an kind of off topic example of that, but it's somebody that we both know that was at the center of it. And this is from like back in 2018, where there's a lawyer here in Georgia named Catherine Bernard. And she was a public defender at the time and basically got somebody a not guilty verdict on a marijuana possession trial when it was very obvious that this man had done what he was accused of, but she talked the jury into voting not guilty because he shouldn't be charged with this victimless crime. And I think she's done that twice, where, in 2018 and in the year prior, it says she got a similar not guilty verdict for Antonia Willis, who was goaded into buying some joints from an undercover cop. So in both cases, well, yeah, technically they did it. They technically broke the law, but do you really want to punish somebody who didn't hurt anybody? And I
Right.
think, hopefully the same thing can happen in these cases where it's like, yeah, the guy cut him down. It's against the law. But nobody's happy about these flock cameras, so we'll see if anyone actually wants to throw him in jail or whatever on a jury.
Right. And we probably should throw a disclaimer out here at this point in time that we are a nonprofit organization who helps people organize against local surveillance, but nowhere in our training materials do we tell people to go cut them down.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah,
it's not something I would ever do, and I wouldn't suggest anyone do it either, just because the risk involved is pretty great, as you're seeing. I don't
right,
want to end up in jail. This isn't my type of activism, and that if somebody asked me, hey, should I do this? I would tell them no. But that doesn't mean that people aren't going to do it, and when they do it, it's hard not to, cheer for it a little bit.
yeah. But I'm just imagining if this could set off because it seems to be ramping up, and this could set off a whole series of people on juries just refusing to find these people guilty. In which case, it's like, yeah, and I feel like the police kind of know that they're losing control of the situation, because whenever I go on Facebook, it's like every third post that I see now is something about a flock camera. And I'm seeing a lot of police departments that are basically saying this is flock and this is what flock does and this is why it's important and we solve all these crimes and you're breaking very serious laws and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, everybody knows that. You know that. There's nobody going out there and cutting down a flock camera that doesn't know that that is against the law.
Yeah.
Why are you out here lecturing people like they don't know that it's against the law? They know that. You are just basically it's they care. They care enough to say, I don't care if it's against the law. This is wrong. This is
Mm-hmm.
unethical. And an argument could be made that they are themselves breaking the law by putting them up in the first place because
Yeah.
it's not the Constitution,
Well,
the
it's
ultimate law of the land.
exactly. It seems like a pretty clear Fourth Amendment violation, and I'm sure that they
Right.
have all sorts of arguments to twist that into pretzels and say it's not, but I don't know. Like, can you imagine the original intent of the Fourth Amendment and they didn't think, well, if there's automated recording devices that watches everybody come and go and keeps a journal of it, that would not be something that we're talking about right now as we write this down about
Yes.
unreasonable, searches. But
You cannot convince me that the founding fathers, if they could have looked into the future, would not have been against this. Everybody knows that.
mm-hmm.
It's just, as someone said, people are using the Fourth Amendment like toilet paper
Yeah.
nowadays. But we all know that this is wrong. I don't care what court says what. But on that note, we did have positive news from the Supreme Court in that geofencing case that they listened to that is reinforcing privacy and could potentially have an impact on the future of flock cameras.
Yeah. So I did see some people, I guess, incorrectly interpreting this that geofence warrants were unconstitutional. And I think, unfortunately, they didn't rule that, but they ruled it has to abide by the Fourth Amendment. So I'm
Right.
not
You have to
100% sure what that means in effect. So, because it seems like on its, just by its nature, it doesn't abide by the Fourth Amendment.
well, yeah, because what you're doing is you're collecting you're not surveilling a person that is suspected of a
Mm-hmm.
crime. You're surveilling just all kinds of innocent people.
Yeah. So I
And
guess an
then
example of a use of it would be like we're at a protest and we're all in one big gaggle. And then the police are like, well, we're going to get a geofence warrant for this area to see all who is here. Is that accurate?
right. So, yes, it basically allows them to capture the location of a great bunch of people. And some of those people have nothing to do with what they're looking for.
Yeah, they could just be walking their dog on the sidewalk next to whatever's going on, or eating at a restaurant next door, or driving by, or whatever. And that's not to even say that even if you are part of whatever protest, that you should be part of a geofence warrant on your, if you're doing nothing wrong, it seems to me like there should be no sort of warrant whatsoever out, for you or your data.
Right, because attending a protest is legal.
Yes. But I
And it,
imagine that is the primary use for this.
well, so there are cases like, say that there was a robbery in a particular area.
Okay.
They could do a geofence warrant that could identify the device of everybody that
Or if
was in
a
the area.
flock camera got cut down.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Which it would be really, really foolish to go out and cut down a flock camera with your cell phone on you. But I
Yeah.
guess it would be foolish to do that if you're robbing someplace too.
Yeah. Well. So I think they did like a geofence warrant for January 6th, didn't they, to see who all was there?
They did all kinds of things like that. And that in that case, they even got like banks involved.
Oh yeah.
Banks were sending a list of these are the transactions of people. There was some poor guy that was just getting a sandwich in a sandwich shop somewhere, and the next thing you know, the FBI is knocking on his door because there was a record of a transaction in the area of him purchasing something.
I mean, that's exactly what we were just saying. It's like if you're eating at a restaurant or walking your dog and maybe there's a robbery down the road you don't even know about, or a protest that gets out of hand, or something, or a protest that doesn't get out of hand.
Exactly.
You know, you could be caught up in this dragnet, essentially. Which, I mean, I guess that's a good analogy is dragnet because I guess famously didn't like dolphins and stuff get caught in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. I have more stories here. So this one you sent me, and it wasn't about anyone cutting it down, I don't think, or, but it just says residents ask Harris County commissioners.
Well, this week we told
to cancel the contract over security concerns. So I see some of this going on too, where different municipalities are either canceling contracts or letting them expire. And I saw another thing on top of that is that in many cases, Flock is keeping the cameras going pro bono. Have you seen anything about that?
I have seen that, and they are actually like police departments are going out and having to put bags over the cameras because they refuse to turn them off.
Which, I
Yeah.
mean, then it's like, you know, there's already all the problems that we point out with flock cameras. But when you don't even have the force of law or the permission of the, you know, governing body of that area, like that is, I feel like the what they were skating by on to begin with. It's like, well, you know, city council said we could do it or the county voted for it, so we're doing it. But now it's like, no, we're just a private company who has up cameras watching everybody, and they actually voted to take them down, and we're not doing it.
Right. It's how can you even justify that? That yes, we're you've ended your contract, but we're going to keep surveilling your citizens anyway.
I mean, honestly,
It's like,
someone needs to go to jail for that, I think.
yeah, yeah, I think so too. If nothing else, heavy fines. And someone suggested that they should fine them in that case. It's like if you leave junk on the side of the road, if you go drop off a refrigerator on the side of the road, then that just that's junk. And if you do that, you can be fined for it. And it's like if this no longer has an official city function, just send them a fine for not picking their junk up.
Yeah. Or just let, you know, the scrap haulers know about them. It's like, yeah, go cut them down, take them, sell them for
Yeah.
scrap, I guess.
Well, there was that county commissioner in Missouri who they made them illegal in their county, and they kept telling them to come get your cameras, and they didn't do it, and so he just went and took it down.
Oh, yeah.
He
He
wasn't
got arrested, didn't
stealing.
he?
He did. He got arrested. He got arrested for upholding the law in his county, what they had decided was the law. That ended up being like some contest between the sheriff that or no, it was state patrol. The state patrol that wanted them, but it was a road that was not a state road. So, yeah, it would be worth looking into that, I think, and see whatever happened with that. But yeah, it's time and time again, this company is proving themselves to be unethical.
Yeah.
And there, when it used to be when you would go out to their website to look up Flock Nova, you would see the title of the page was "Search Once, See Everything." And
Yeah.
I noticed the last time that I went out there, now they've changed that to search once, um, act fast or something like
Yeah,
that.
see, act faster. Let me see if I can.
Act faster. Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's on one of our old episodes. Because I know we've talked about it before. Oh, wow, I put it in the Wayback Machine. Let me pull this up. Sorry, this URL has been excluded from the Wayback Machine. So you can't look at what
Oh,
it used to say. Although, I bet you, I don't know, it might take me too long to find it right now, but we might have it on one of our episodes because we've looked at it before.
yeah, we do. If somebody has that, we definitely need to find that because uh, they're in a middle of a constant PR campaign because they know that everyone hates what they're doing. At least the majority of the population is very troubled by what they're doing. And they're constantly switching gears and doing deceptive things and not being forthright and honest about what they're doing.
Yeah. Um, let's see. There was one more I saw here. This Geneva County. So
Yeah.
where is it? Geneva County, Alabama, has voted unanimously to require permits for flock cameras before they can be installed on county right-of-ways. So, I don't know. Is that just more?
So in this way, the sheriff can't go in and basically change or put in a flock camera without getting a permit from the county.
Okay.
But something interesting that happened, and I guess they didn't cover it in that story, something interesting that happened in Geneva was a
Oops.
one of the county commissioners um, basically is saying that if we're going to be collecting this data is going to be available to the public.
Yeah.
And so I know in Georgia, we have some folks here that have been uh, trying to do Open Records Act requests to get flock camera data. And they actually have legislation in place that says that it can't be released to the public, which whether or not that's legal is questionable. Um, but in
But as of
Alabama,
right now, it still can be, correct?
well, so according to the code, if you read the code, it cannot.
Hmm.
But there has actually been lot camera data received on public officials. This
Yeah.
same group has actually been successful in doing that, but there is code there now that says that it can't. But I think we've talked before about the Pavasic versus New
Yeah.
England Life Insurance Company, which basically says you cannot surveil the public. The public has a right to privacy, but you can surveil public officials. So, yeah, there is definitely standing for a lawsuit there that public officials can gather this information, but yet the public is not entitled to it.
Hmm. Um. So this permitting process too. Like one thing I noticed, there's a guy I think called the Guardrail Guy on Twitter, and he was pointing out that a lot of the flock cameras don't conform to the code that literally every other piece of equipment beside the road has to. So,
Right,
when a stop sign or something is put up, it has to be so many feet off of the road. It has to be inspected. It has to be a breakaway so that if a car hits it, it just kind of breaks away. And that
right,
breakaway has to be at a certain height off or no more than a certain height off the ground. And he explained that if it's too high, it can like scrape the bottom of electric cars and pierce the battery. And he was just going all over town finding flock cameras that are like, A, way too close to the road, not inspected, don't have the inspection sticker, and don't have breakaways in some cases, so that if somebody hit them, they would not break away, and it would be, way more damage to a person's car and perhaps themselves than it would be if they hit hit a pole that was up to this code. And then the ones that did have breakaways often were too high up, so that they would scrape the bottom of a Tesla and pierce the battery or something and potentially cause a lithium fire. So I do wonder if these permits are going to make them have to abide by the same rules that the Department of Transportation abides by. And if there's any concern, from all the counties that have just let them go up willy-nilly, that, they're bypassing all the rules that every other, highway department and everything else has to follow.
Right, right. And how is that allowed to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like you can't on a highway, you can't put up a brick mailbox on a highway because that's dangerous. Because if somebody veers off the road, they're gonna potentially that could kill someone. And yeah, there it has to be something that if you hit it, it's going to collapse.
Yeah. Well, I've been trying for a minute to find that search once, see everything. And I do see John Padfield talked about it too. So that's another very good source. Let's see if it's in his video. I've just been scanning here. It's insane that, like, how do you get an exception from the Wayback Machine? The only other person or any that I've seen that has done that was Taylor Lorenz, I guess, because she had her uncle work there or something. So I guess she didn't want her stupid tweets, out there for everyone to see forever.
I've never heard of that happening.
Wow.
So, well, there are other. I know, like Archive IS, I think is one of them. I don't know if that's still up, but we might be able to find it. But yeah, that definitely would be something, a good idea for something to put out there and call to people's attention. Because, yeah, once you start trying to reword things like that, you know that there's a problem.
Here it is. Archive.is has it. Flock safety. I should screenshot this for sure. Search once, see everything. That's creepy.
That? Yeah.
And I guess they realized it was creepy because now it's search once, act faster.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, what else do we have to talk about? I just pulled up some random stuff. We just go through it real quick. ALPR.WTF is a new website. Or I don't know how new it is, but they have every location that has these cameras, and this list goes on for quite a while. The first page I took a minute to scroll through, and it's just Alabama, Arkansas, California.
Is that a searchable list?
Let's see. Can you search? Yep, it looks like so. So, yep, you can search it.
Well, that's good. That's a very useful resource.
So,
I have to say that it's very gratifying. When we first started this organization in 2021, and I've said this before, had like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, you had STOP, which is a Surveillance Technology Oversight Project. There, over in the UK, was Big Brother Watch, but there weren't just but a handful of organizations. Even STOP was strictly in New York City that were doing anything with this. And now they're just popping up all over the place. And as I've said before, our goal with starting this organization is to make a world where this organization is no longer necessary. So if there are a bunch of other folks out there that are working on it and coming at it from different angles, then yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
And one thing I think that's good about Banished Big Brother too is that we're not just a flock organization, which I mean I think it's
Right.
great that there are ones that are singularly focused on one issue at this very time when it needs to be. But we started talking about smart cities, and that's still a concern, and it still needs to be talked about. And then flock kind of became the thing to talk about and the thing to fight back against in the moment. And we've been talking about that a lot lately. But there's probably going to be a next thing too, unfortunately. Like,
Right.
we joke that we wish our organization could just pack up and go home and we don't have to do this anymore. But, that's probably mostly a joke. And I guess the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And
Yeah.
it's going to
Probably
be.
not in our lifetimes is that going to happen.
Yeah.
Not unless a meteor hits the earth or
Yeah,
something.
that would put a stop to our plans and everyone else's, I guess.
Yeah.
But so, here's one thing I've saw today, which, could be the next thing, and I think it likely could be, is that maybe they were just too obvious with flock cameras. Because it was powerful when we could say, hey, look for this type of camera on the side of the street. It's like, you'd never really seen a camera like this before. It has a solar panel. It's on a black pole. That's a flock camera. It's an automated license plate reader. They're tracking you everywhere you go. It's not just for license plates. It's AI. It's memorizing your car, your bumper stickers, your roof rack, your bike rack, and all of that stuff. But now, I think their next move is going to be, well, let's just put them in inconspicuous places. Let's put cameras in the light, the street lights. Let's put AI on the cameras that already exist. So
Yeah.
at some point, also, it doesn't seem like a problem that you can just go cut down. As much as I
Right.
applaud people who do that, you can't as easily go cut down a camera that's over I-75.
Right.
So I think this has to be
And the
settled.
towers, they're huge. You can see
Yeah.
the surveillance towers. Those are everywhere. And yeah, you can't cut that down either. Um and that is correct. And it's I feel like probably what we're moving toward is making the license plate readers less visible, because that's kind of why people got in an uproar about it anyway, is because you could see it. And you're riding around your neighborhood and, oh, there's another one. There's another one. And that gets people alarmed. But when they are not as obvious and they're invisible to people, people don't care so much. And that's why, as I've mentioned before, we do not need to have this focus strictly on flock cameras. This needs to be on surveillance, period, that that governments can't do this. There needs to be procedures, policies, laws in place that basically says, no, you cannot conduct this kind of mass surveillance with any technology.
Yep. And, that is frustrating because I tend to want to ignore the government and not be involved and just live my life and live and let live type. But, when it seems like you do the math on all the different options, and it's like, I would love to see it if all these things just got cut down or run over and, all right, it was too expensive. They're not going to try it again. I don't think that's going to happen. And this has to, I think, be solved through whether it's the courts or the legislature or whatever. And I don't have a lot of faith that things are going to be perfect on the other side of that. But, I do like what I'm seeing with people showing up to council meetings and, letting their concerns be heard. And sometimes, like you've experienced, there are reasonable people who are like, wow, I had no idea this stuff was going on. Let me see
Right.
what I can do to work with you. And then there are people who make fools out of themselves, like the guy in Texas we talked about last week, who, I don't know. I feel like after that, it might be harder for him to win re-election. At least that's
Yeah.
one thing we can say. And there's people who will dig their heels in and fight it. So, but I
But
don't know. At least they're on the record.
in order to accomplish anything through the courts or through legislatures, there first has to be public outcry,
Yeah.
public outrage. And so I think it's a matter of keeping this momentum going with people being upset about it. And hopefully, it's like if the Institute for Justice was successful in their flock camera case, if that goes to the Supreme Court, then that is going to make a big dent in the intrusions upon our privacy, because that's going to be a huge precedent, something that hasn't been ruled on in quite a good long time. So.
Yeah, I'm just brainstorming here, but would it be possible for some district attorney or something like that to decide it's like you are breaking the law when you refuse to turn off the cameras, and we're going to charge somebody?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because, I mean, I feel like if that happened once, that would definitely send a message. It would take like one district attorney who's like, no, you can't flaunt the law in our city or our county. If we tell you turn these off, turn them off. You can't keep, they probably wouldn't use the word spying on, but you can't keep running this system or whatever when we tell you not to. And in fact, it's illegal and we're going to do something about it. I don't know if that person exists. Maybe that's a pipe dream. But I mean, I think that would send a message if anyone out there would do something like that. And I guess it would have to be a very specific case for them to be able to. Like, I don't know how many cities are out there where they cancel their contract or let it lapse, and I don't know. They can only,
and they don't turn them off.
Yeah.
It would have to be one of those.
But
well, who knows? Sometimes we talk about something and then 5 minutes later it happens.
Yeah.
So that could. I think the last I heard, there are 81 cities now that have canceled or allowed their flock contracts to expire. So who knows? One of those might be doing that as we speak.
Yeah. I also wonder, is there a scenario where this ends just because the economics don't make sense? Like, I remember way back in the day, I don't even remember how long ago now, probably 10, 15 or more years, Chattanooga, Tennessee put in speed cameras.
Right.
Not nearly as many as there are flock cameras, but there were speed cameras. And then what happened was people knew where the speed cameras were and they didn't speed by them. So they had a initial bump of revenue where people were getting caught by them. And then, they're going to putter by it later, not get caught speeding, and the ticket revenue goes down, yet the cameras still cost money to run and maintain, and you're probably paying some sort of company, some, contract fees. And after a while, they're like, hey, this is actually losing us money. Let's take them down.
Right.
And, it seems like maybe it's not as directly of a correlation because the flock cameras aren't like just revenue generation, but more of a, spying apparatus. So maybe they can actually lose money and still be like, yeah, but it's worth it. But I do wonder if there's at some point where they're like, hey, we're losing this many cameras. People are mad. They're taking them down. Sure, we arrest a guy every now and then. But, maybe it's the economics don't make sense. We can't keep doing this. I don't know. I'm not sure if that could happen or if there's money out there where they're like, yeah, we got millions, we got billions, it'll be fine. I mean, obviously not the municipalities, but flock themselves.
Yeah. Um, I think Flock, I don't know about the future of Flock. I could see Flock going out of business simply because their name is associated with this now. They have a horrible reputation. They've the things that they've done, the things that they've said on camera that basically are just totally disrespectful of people's rights and of citizens, trying to basically characterize people who are against Flock as being terrorists and things like that. I don't know that they as a company can recover from that. So, you know, and they're the face of license plate readers. But there are other companies that are in competition with them that, you know, I don't know. I don't they're not necessarily going to go away.
Yeah. Well, even, I don't know, people who, the individuals behind some of this, I would think twice before hiring somebody who worked at Flock at this point. I don't know. And then, like, some of the stuff I've seen people who work there say is Looney Tunes. Like, I think I've told this story on here before, but I have somebody I went to high school with, and I was friends with him on LinkedIn or connection with him. And I saw that he became some sort of VP at Flock. And, a lot of these companies have tons and tons of VPs. You can be VP of the Christmas party. So it doesn't necessarily mean that he was a bigwig, but I think he did have a conversation with a bigwig, and he put on LinkedIn, like, after this conversation, I really believe in the mission to eliminate crime. Like, I'm convinced that we can do it. And I'm like, well, you're certifiably insane then if you think that you're going to eliminate crime. And I was surprised to see that wasn't just him rambling or, him saying something that he shouldn't have said out of a private meeting, but they go around saying our mission is to eliminate crime. And it's here on their website on a blog.
Well, because that is what they think will that people will it will resonate with them, and it does resonate with a lot of people because that is a common argument. Well, if you're not a criminal, what are you worried about? That's what they do, is they find criminals. It's just people who can't seem to think ahead, who can't see unforeseen consequences or ulterior motives or any of those things. Who knows? Because even if you don't want to, you feel like it's too conspiratorial to say, well, this is something that's just part of a much bigger surveillance thing, you still can't deny that a lot of people inadvertently get caught up in it. You can't deny that there's a lot of money to be made by selling this data.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Anything else that we should be talking about right now? So, people are mad. People are cutting down the cameras. People are going to their city councils, their county councils. There seem to be a couple different irons in the fire, over like ways to try to get rid of these and push back on them. Is there anything we haven't covered on that front
Yeah,
yet?
the police are doing damage control. Yeah, that yeah, that's
Well,
pretty much the bulk of what's going on right now.
Well, you brought up an interesting point to me privately the other day, is that, with AI cameras being everywhere and the increased use of AI itself, is this eventually going to result in fewer police jobs? Because, we always hear about, like, AI is going to replace us, this job's going away, these people were fired, they're all been replaced with AI. And whether or not that is a long-term trend or whether that's something that companies are doing and are going to pay for and regret later, I think we're still, yet to see. But do you think there's going
I
to be a wave of like, well, we have all these cameras watching everywhere. Maybe we don't need as many patrolmen. Maybe we don't need, well, another real quick, and I'll go back to you. But another example is like the speed cameras, or the school zone speed cameras here in Georgia. We're like, oh, we got a school zone speed camera. We don't need a crossing guard now. So it's like, how
Right.
long until this comes for the police themselves?
So I'm actually writing an article about this right
Okay.
now. Yes. And it absolutely is going to happen. The police, they are out there championing the flock cameras. They are championing the very technology that is going to replace them, because surveillance is going to replace them. I saw a video of a council meeting where they voted to eliminate the flock cameras, and a police officer walked up and put her badge down and basically, I'm resigning at this moment because you are eliminating flock cameras. But really, if
Wow.
you look at the logical conclusion of all of this, they have robot dogs doing security in places like Madison Square Garden. Those are typically events like that. You would have law enforcement or private security doing those. You have little R2D2 type robots that are out there monitoring parking lots and doing security. The drone program, they actually name the drones are named first responder. That is what they call the drones.
Yeah.
Well,
You
what
thought
if
you were a
you have
first responder. No, it's this drone.
right, exactly. And I saw a video recently of a house had burned down. A person was basically trespassing and walking around in the burned down house. And rather than sending police officers to apprehend this person, they sent a drone out to get that person out of the house. So it just stands to reason that, yes, police forces are going to be streamlined. They're only going to need people sitting in the real time crime center, before long. And, maybe a handful of officers, but a lot of the standard, especially like entry level positions on police forces, are going to be eliminated.
Well, and who even says that this real time crime center is going to be local? We see
There you
with
go.
Predator
There you
drones,
go.
and when they're bombing the Middle East, they're flying those from like Arizona. They don't have to be local. So when they're sending a drone to tell a trespasser to get out of there, they could be doing it from somewhere that's not even your city, your state, maybe not even in the country. If
That's
they
a
want to get
very
real,
good point.
yeah,
That's a very good point. You could have a company that offers real-time crime center services to municipalities where you don't even need your own real-time crime center. And yeah, I guarantee you that is where this is going.
that is definitely going to happen. Honestly, sometimes I feel like we might be giving people too many good bad ideas, but but
I if I thought that, I wouldn't say it, but I guarantee you they're already doing it. They're
yeah.
already thinking about it.
Plus, I think only cool people listen to this show. Nobody's going to
Yeah.
do that. So,
Yeah, there you go.
all
Maybe
right.
our one CIA agent.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are assigned.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's about it for this time then. Just, I think it was important that we got on here and talked about this flock pushback that's going on, and it's evolving and it's developing right now. So, who knows what's to come or what we might be talking about in a week or two. We shall see. And, we're here basically in the heart of it too, with Flock being in Atlanta, and I'm outside of Atlanta, and you're in Georgia. But it's interesting, and we'll see. So, you mentioned you were writing that article. I don't know when that'll be out. I'm not trying to rush you. I'm just saying people should check out banishedbigbrother.com for things like that. We got a lot of the podcast recently, but then there is one article still on the front page Although by the time this episode comes out, I think it will push it off the front page. You'll just have to look at the blog itself. So you can see Elizabeth's last article, which was Surveillance of Thought, where she talks about the modern brainwave technology, which is not hypothetical anymore. It's real. There are devices that can read your brainwaves and log them to an app or interpret them or whatever. I don't know why anybody would really want to do that outside of maybe for some serious medical reason, but there's that. And then you had an article from earlier this year about Palantir. And just to give a little context, I think the first of your articles of this series was published on, was it FEE? No.
It was AEIR.
AIR, American Institute for Economic Research.
Yeah.
And it got picked up by Zero Hedge, and I think like near 1 million people or something must have read it. So now it's kind of more exclusive to Banished Big Brother. We still have, a lot of people getting eyes on it, but that's how you check out Elizabeth's work and the podcast and anything else we put out there. Also still have resources, toolkits, ways to request a speaker, start a chapter, buy merch, and just to refresh on, who some of those speakers could be. Got Elizabeth herself. We got Dr. John Padfield. Myself, where I cover sometimes more technical topics. James Dutton, who, if you're not familiar with, put his name into YouTube and ignore everything about Yellowstone and look for anything pertaining to school zone speed cameras in Georgia. And, he's a very impressive person here in Georgia pushing back against the surveillance state. And Michael Meharry of the 10th Amendment Center are all some of the people that are working with us at Banished Big Brother. So, yeah, go check that out. We appreciate everybody who likes, subscribes. This is primarily to an audio podcast. So if you're catching this on YouTube or Rumble or something, Odyssey, there is video, but it's not really always necessary. And we try to be audio first. So go check it out on RSS readers. That way, you really can't take that down. Even if, we make YouTube mad or make Rumble mad or whatever, they can kick us off. You can't really stop an RSS feed. So, I don't know. Any final thoughts, any final words before we get out of here?
I think we covered it.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank everybody for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
We representing peeps that don't play us on the app. And we're talking in the